Pick one up and it shakes. Put it in a bag and it can ride through an airport without anyone blinking. Dress it in a sweater and it looks less like a predator and more like a toy that learned to breathe. And yet, ask the people who actually study dog behavior for a living, which breed shows up again and again near the top of the list for growling at strangers, snapping at owners, and biting more often than almost any other dog on the planet. And the answer is usually the same small, trembling animal you just imagined holding in one hand. Why? Why does the dog built to be carried turn out to be, pound for pound, one of the most reactive animals in the entire species? That question is the reason this video exists, because almost everything people assume about this breed, that it's fragile, that it's harmless, that its attitude is just a funny personality quirk, turns out to be only half the story, and the other half is far more interesting than the stereotype. First, the paradox. Surveys of dog owners and veterinary behaviorists asking which breeds show the most aggression toward strangers and toward their own families have repeatedly placed small breeds at the very top, and Chihuahuas land near the front of that list almost every time. One widely cited behavioral study, published years ago in a peer-reviewed animal behavior journal, ranked Chihuahuas above German Shepherds, Rottweilers, and Pit Bulls for aggression directed at people outside the household. Read that sentence again. A dog that weighs less than a bag of sugar was statistically more likely to bite than a dog bred for protection work. That is not a coincidence, and it is not really about size at all. It is about something happening inside the animal's head that has almost nothing to do with how big its teeth are. Second, the data behind the bite. When researchers talk about aggression, they are usually counting incidents, growls, snaps, lunges, actual bites, not measuring how dangerous each incident turns out to be. A Chihuahua bite rarely sends anyone to the hospital. A bite from a much larger dog almost always does. So two very different things get flattened into the same headline. Chihuahuas bite often, but they rarely cause serious injury, while the breeds responsible for the most severe attacks tend to bite far less frequently. The dog most likely to bite you and the dog most likely to put you in the emergency room are, in most data sets, not the same animal at all. The fear-inducing headline about the world's most aggressive small dog is technically true and almost completely misleading at the same time. Third, the syndrome nobody named correctly. Veterinary behaviorists have a semi-informal term for what happens to small dogs raised without consistent boundaries: small dog syndrome. It is not a diagnosis you will find with a neat clinical code, but the pattern behind it is well documented. A growling Great Dane gets corrected immediately because a 100-pound animal lunging at a guest is a genuine emergency. A growling Chihuahua gets laughed at, picked up, and rewarded with cuddles for protecting its owner. Do that consistently for a few years, and you have not bred an aggressive dog. You have trained one unintentional reward at a time. The breed did not invent this behavior. The way humans treat tiny dogs differently than they treat large ones did. Fourth, the body that built the brain. Here is where the story stops being about training and becomes about biology. A Chihuahua experiences the world from roughly 8 inches off the ground. Every stranger is a giant. Every dog at the park outweighs it by a factor of 5 or 10. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, an animal that small, surrounded by a world of much larger creatures, has exactly 2 survival strategies: flee or convince everything around it that it is not worth the trouble. Bared teeth, a sharp bark, a sudden lunge. These are not random bad behavior. They are a tiny animal's attempt to look big enough to not get stepped on, literally and socially. Confidence in a Chihuahua often looks identical to aggression in a Chihuahua, because for an animal that size, the two have always had to mean the same thing. Fifth, the part the legend leaves out. The popular origin story claims the Chihuahua descends in an unbroken line from a sacred dog of the Aztec Empire, bred by priests and buried alongside royalty. The real history is messier and more interesting. Long before the Aztecs, the Toltec civilization in what is now Mexico kept a small companion dog called the Tachichi, and archaeological and historical records support the existence of small domestic dogs across pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. But the modern Chihuahua, as a standardized breed with a name, a registry, and a fixed look, did not exist until the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when American breeders in the state of Chihuahua, Mexico, took surviving small native dogs and selectively bred them, likely crossing in other small European breeds along the way, to create something stable enough to register with kennel clubs. The ancient companion is real. The unbroken sacred bloodline is closer to marketing than to genetics. Sixth, the hole in its head. Many Chihuahuas are born with a molera, an open soft spot on the top of the skull where the bones never fully fuse, the same kind of fontanelle found in human infants before the skull plates close. In most other mammals, this would be considered a defect. In the Chihuahua breed standard, it is recognized and in many cases expected. It is one of the clearest physical signatures of how dramatically breeders compressed an already small dog into an even smaller frame, fast, without always giving the skeleton time to catch up. It rarely causes problems on its own, but it is a quiet, literal reminder that this breed's extreme size was engineered by people, not by nature taking its time. The skeleton tells the rest of the story too. Toy-sized Chihuahuas are prone to a kneecap condition called patellar luxation, where the kneecap slips out of its groove because the leg bones develop too small and too fast to hold it firmly in place. Their jaws are often too narrow for a full set of adult teeth, leading to crowding and a higher rate of dental disease than almost any other breed. And the smallest individuals, the ones bred deliberately for the teacup market, face a real risk of hypoglycemia, dangerously low blood sugar, simply because their bodies are too small to store enough energy between meals. None of this is exotic. It is the direct physical cost of shrinking an animal far below what evolution ever optimized it for, in a fraction of the time evolution usually takes. Seventh, what intelligence has nothing to do with any of this? There is a separate myth worth killing here, the idea that small, reactive dogs are simply less intelligent than calm, confident ones. Canine cognition researchers who rank breeds by trainability and problem-solving consistently place Chihuahuas in the middle of the pack, not at the bottom, closer to many working breeds than people expect. The breed is not aggressive because it is unintelligent. It is reactive because of size, history, and how it has been raised. Three separate forces that have nothing to do with how smart the animal actually is. And the Chihuahua is not alone on this list, which is itself the strongest evidence that none of this is really about one breed being uniquely flawed. Dachshunds, bred to fight badgers alone in pitch-black tunnels, show up near the same place in aggression surveys. Jack Russell Terriers, bred to chase prey into burrows without backup, do too. Line up the small breeds that score highest for aggression towards strangers and owners, and the same blueprint keeps repeating. A tiny body, a job that once demanded total fearlessness against animals many times its size, and a modern home life that gives that fearlessness nothing useful to do. The trait was never a flaw. It was the entire point of the breed, just with the original job removed and nothing put in its place. Eighth, what humans did to make it worse. Somewhere in the last few decades, the Chihuahua became a fashion accessory. Celebrity culture and a wave of films and television turned the breed into a purse dog, a living prop carried more than it was walked, socialized less than almost any other breed its size. A dog that never meets other dogs, never meets strangers on the ground at eye level, never learns that the world is not actually a threat, will default to its oldest survival strategy: bare its teeth first and ask questions later. The breed did not get more aggressive over the last 50 years. The way an entire generation of owners chose to raise it did. Ninth, the reframe. None of this means a stereotype is fake. The aggression is real, the bite statistics are real, and anyone who has been on the wrong end of an unsocialized Chihuahua's temper knows it is not gentle. But the cause is not a tiny monster hiding inside a tiny body. It is a small, intelligent, historically misunderstood animal responding rationally to a world built at a scale it was never designed to dominate, and to generations of owners who, often without realizing it, taught the behavior they later complained about. The fix, according to trainers who specialize in toy breeds, looks almost insultingly simple. Treat the 8-pound dog the way you would treat an 80-pound one. Correct a growl the first time, not the 10th. Put it on the ground among other dogs and strangers early and often, instead of keeping it elevated in arms where it never learns the world is survivable at ground level. Reward calm instead of rewarding the dramatic display that gets it picked up and comforted. None of this requires expensive training or rare expertise. It requires owners willing to stop treating a real dog like a stuffed animal that occasionally growls. Properly socialized from puppyhood, trained with the same consistency given to a much larger dog, a Chihuahua is not statistically more dangerous than any other well-raised breed. The danger was never really in the dog. It was in how easy it is to underestimate something that fits in one hand, and how rarely anyone corrects a behavior they find too small to take seriously. The next time you see one trembling in someone's bag, baring its teeth at a dog 50 times its size, remember that you are not looking at an aggressive breed. You are looking at a survival strategy, 8 inches off the ground, doing exactly what it was trained, by accident or on purpose, to do.